Welcome to Talking Giants player profiles and projections. We got an offensive player and a defensive player. That's the way it goes, Justin. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, presented by John Boy Media. Did I say that twice? I'm not sure. Justin, we got Evan Engram today. Evan Engram, he's 6'3", 240 pounds. He's entering his fourth year in the NFL. He'll be 26 years old by the time the season starts. He was picked in the first round, 23rd overall, by Jerry Reese. Justin, he's a complicated player, but what do you got on him?
Doesn't it feel like he's been in the league for longer?
It feels like he's been through like two Giants regimes. That's what the deal is.
Yeah, like his rookie year where he got 1 million targets, but his efficiency was really bad in 2017 because all a tight end was, and Ben McAdoo's offense was just a dump-off machine, and that's who Eli Manning was during 2017 and after 2016 anyway. So, yeah, Evan Engram, complicated player, but very similar, to a lot of players on this roster, Bobby, let's be frank. Very important player, extremely important player.
Right, but Caden Smith does make it a little less important.
Right.
What do you got on him, though?
Right, so my fun fact about Evan Engram, and the story goes back to that Giants Huddle interview he did last year before last training camp. I think the more known fact about him is that his sister was a player in the WNBA, very successful basketball player, I believe, for Georgia. They both went to SEC schools.
Georgia.
Evan Engram
Just
does
like Andrew
have
Thomas.
Yeah, that's right. Evan Engram does have a tattoo of his sister, but the most fun story I think about that, and the most fun part about their relationship, at least what's public, is as Evan Engram was looking for D1 schools and D1 offers in high school, he wasn't getting all of the scholarship letters in the mail. It was actually his sister. So they both had that little bit of rivalry, and there was a little bit of jealousy between the two siblings. As the sister was getting all the letters in the mail, she was getting all the phone calls, she was getting heavily recruited. And I think it wasn't until Evan Engram actually went to an Ole Miss camp where he really got the attention of some coaches. But even after attending that camp, Evan Engram was a little frustrated because it really took him a while to get that offer, and then he finally recruited, and now he's a New York Football Giant.
They saw that he was 6'3" and ran that fast, and they're like, all right, we don't know if he's good, just give him something.
Yeah.
All right, so Justin, last year, he got hurt in the Minnesota game, missed a week. And then after the Dallas game, he was out for the season, missed 7 games. He got foot surgery on December 20th. Justin, let's get into some stats, and then we'll just talk about him. In 8 games last year, he had 44 catches, 467 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's a 65% catch target. At a 16-game rate, Justin, that's 88 catches, 934 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's awesome for, just kind of normal stats. That's awesome. In 2018, in 11 games, he had 45 catches for 577 yards, 3 touchdowns. You mentioned his rookie year where he missed 1 game, 64 for 722 and 6 touchdowns. He's extremely productive when he plays, Justin. He had 1 bad game. Statistically, there's only 1 game you look at and like, ooh, bad game. It was Arizona where he had 1 catch for 6 yards, and he had that 1 big drop on the right sideline.
Yeah, you mentioned the 16-game stats, but then when you look at some of the more advanced numbers, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's a different offense, and I really feel it's irrelevant, and I more or less want to talk about Evan Engram's role in 2020, more or less what he did in 2019, because I just don't think that's important. But yes, you look at the 16-game scale, and this is what we're trying to do at Talking Giants, and this is what I'm just trying to do as a football fan, looking at the game of football in a nuanced way. So yes, the 16-game and the volume stats like catches and yards, they were pretty good. Like, holy crap, for a tight end getting 88 catches and all those yards, that's absolutely amazing. But the efficiency, all very much down compared to 2018. Warren Sharp talked a lot about that recently. His yards after catch per reception was down by 2 yards. His yards per reception was down almost 2 yards. So his efficiency numbers were not that great. But like I said, I don't really think it's that important to talk about because we're in a totally new system and we're going to an offensive coordinator where it was Jason Witten and Tony Romo for all those years, and Jason Witten had a Hall of Fame career.
And Jones likes to come back to the tight ends, and Evan Ingram's a game breaker. That speed is game changing. Look at the Tampa game with just a simple drag route he takes for 75 yards to start off the second half.
That changed the game.
Yeah, there's not many tight ends in the league that can do that, and Evan Ingram did that. His first touchdown pass for Daniel Jones was not even that hard of one because he just got it to Evan Ingram and he burns dudes down the sideline. And he got hurt in that Minnesota game, which is his production wasn't horrible. But you look at those first 4 games where he was just fully healthy and playing with Eli and Jones at QB, 27 catches, 331 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which at a 16-game rate is 100-plus catches, 1,300-plus yards. He was balling until that injury happened, and then, Tate comes back. No one could really get on schedule injury-wise. Like I said, his stats after that weren't bad, but he was a flat-out baller for the New York Giants. And I get we have Caden Smith, and he's not the greatest of blockers, but, man, he's just a game changer, and I want to just see him stay healthy, and that's the biggest if with Evan Ingram.
Yeah, one of my father's favorite sayings when I was growing up is, it's good to want. So I would say, hey, Dad, can we have this or can I have that? And then he would just respond to me, it's good to want. And that's honestly where I feel like we're at with Evan Ingram. Bobby, he's one of the few players, and maybe we can have a segment on this coming up soon on the actual show on one of our longer episodes. He's one of the few players this year where if he does something, great. And if he can put it together for the 16 games, great. Or even if you could put it together for crying out loud for 12 games. I mean, come on, give us something that's more than just a quarter of the season. But I have zero expectations. I think I've officially talked myself out, and this, again, being a fan, I've talked myself out of having the expectation for Evan Ingram, and partially you feel better because of Caden Smith. Now, Bobby, I want to ask you this, and I want this to be really quick, because I think this is a pointless conversation, but it comes up time and time and time again, and it bothers me. Evan Ingram at wide receiver. No, right?
No, you can split him out for reps, but just
Correct.
being like, hey, you're a wide receiver, absolutely not. It's as simple as he loses his speed advantage that he would.
Correct.
Against linebackers. So now, like I said, split him out wide here and there, he's been used that way, especially at Ole Miss. But as just like, hey, if you look at him the way you do Darius Slayton, I don't think so. It's not that he would be like horrible, but it's just a different position. That's not what he's for. And I don't think the injuries come from playing tight end. You know what I'm saying? So I have a lot of hope for him. And like you said, you don't have anything for him. I mean, I do. Now, granted, with Caden Smith, it feels like he's expendable, but when he's in, he's a game changer. And the tight end position is a position that Jones likes. You see some QBs, they don't really use their tight ends that well. Jones is, and then you bring in Jason Garrett, who loves using the tight ends, and it should be a match made in heaven.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I have hope for Evan Ingram, but I think it's the expectations that's where I'm kind of coming from. Evan Ingram's a very good football player. Again, if he's right, I think it's a common thread of these PPPs, Bobby, where we're saying with some of these players if they're right. You just talked about Jason Garrett. I have been trying to dive in, and this is going to be a work in progress for myself and both Bobby about learning about how Jason Garrett used his tight ends, because I almost feel like it's not complex, but it is complex at the same time because there's so much nuance that goes into this. I'm going to share, I recommend you looking up 2 different things if you're listening to this. Number 1, there's an ESPN article that Jason Witten wrote himself. I believe this was the year that he was retired, so he wasn't a player. He wrote this himself about the route that he caught the most balls in his NFL career. He caught 1,152 passes, but no joke, he bets that 500 of them came on the same route, and that route is called the Y option. Now, if you know the Y option in Madden, Bobby, if I don't really play Madden a lot, but if you know the Y option in Madden is you usually have a tight end or maybe your slot wide receiver that has an option whether to make a little bit of a button hook, like 5 yards in, or they run an out route, depending on whatever coverage the wide receiver sees, and I'm putting this in quotes, on Madden. That's the simple way to describe it. But it's a lot more nuanced and it's a lot more complicated than that. So look at that ESPN article. And also, I kind of geeked out over this, Bobby. During Jason Witten's retirement ceremony with Dallas, it was him and Jason Garrett that was talking about the Y option, and Jason Garrett was actually tearing up talking schematically about how brilliant Jason Witten ran that Y option. So in a perfect world, Evan Engram becomes a household name, and Daniel Jones is throwing the ball to him, running that Y option. But the thing that makes me scared, Bobby, is because I remembered in Kevin Gilbride's system, a lot of his system was centered around wide receiver options and option plays. There were wide receivers like, I don't know, Plaxico Burress, Eli Manning had a very good connection. They, almost pre-snap, they knew what they were doing together. Other wide receivers like Ruben Randall. Ruben Randall would come in on a route. Eli Manning would expect him to run a streak down the field, and then there would be an interception thrown to a safety. So option routes, it's going to be interesting to see how much they've learned and how much they've grown together this offseason. But that Y option, that's going to be the thing that's going to make the money for Evan Engram this year.
Yeah, and that's why the tight end spot isn't all just about speed. It's about actually knowing what you're doing and reading. Like, because you're playing the middle of the field, you have to read coverages and see what guys are doing. There's still, Kevin Gilbride's offense was built on option routes on the outside as well, but more so in the tight end because you just got to read linebackers, what guys are doing. And I remember that speech you said about Jason Garrett and Jason Witten, and they said there was like a million different options.
Yeah.
More than just a Madden like in out or
yeah,
curl.
That's the simple way to describe it.
Yeah, there's like a million ways to run that. So if he's willing to put in the work, then he should do that. And that's something Caden Smith showed as a rookie, that he was able to read defenses a little bit, or at least it seemed to be. So yeah, I mean, when I say big expectations, I do have big expectations for him because like, you can't just plan on guys being injured. Now, this year it's a little different where you have Caden Smith to fall back on a little bit. So, big expectations, but I'm not panicking if he does go down. And next year is his 5th year. If he doesn't perform this year, I could definitely see him being a guy that gets traded in the offseason.
Yeah. Bobby, here's also
and teams will take a chance on him with his speed. Even if he misses more games, there will be a playoff team that will take a chance on a guy like Evan Engram.
There were rumblings that the 49ers were interested during the pre-draft process, and they already have one of the best players in the National Football League that just happens to be a tight end. So tight ends are very valuable, and that's actually something that I think it's perfect to bring up, where why Evan Engram is so important is because a tight end can change your entire football team. I like to talk about positional value, and I just like to talk about players who bring value to begin with. Giants haven't had players who bring value. Evan Engram on the football field, again, is a guy who can bring value to an entire offense because he changes the entire complexion. He changes the team's identity. He can make Saquon better. He can make Jones better. He can make these wide receivers better because more attention is being brought onto that one weapon right there. That same value I do not think is there at wide receiver if you're still one of these fans and if you're still one of these people that thinks, oh, but he can just move out there because he's getting hurt. Now, Bobby, I also have this take, and you can shut me down. Feel free to shut me down. But I do think Evan Engram's snap count should be down a little bit this year because I'll be honest, on rushing downs, 3rd and short, 1st and 10, there are plays that I want him taking off because I want to see Caden Smith and Levine Toilolo in there together, blocking and creating holes for Saquon Barkley.
I agree, and I was watching some film for Evan Engram. It was the Tampa game, and Shermer was bringing in Rhett Ellison and Eric Tomlinson, who, good blockers. Ellison actually wasn't a great blocker last year.
No.
But it's like those guys aren't really receiving threats. I know Ellison could make some catches, but Tomlinson definitely wasn't. Where Caden Smith showed he could be a receiving threat, so that makes the defense play a little more honest. But you also can't just take him down out for every running down because you got to leave that threat out there for him and set it up for play actions and stuff like that. All right, you got anything else on the cap before we move to defense?
No. I almost wish we could talk 15 minutes longer about Evan Engram and how important he is. So, Y option. Look up some of those Jason Witten, Jason Garrett videos and articles and stuff like that, and hope to the football gods that Evan Engram could stay healthy in 2020.